Smithsonian Institution Building, the Castle. About. Completed in 1855, the Castle is our signature building and home to the Smithsonian Visitor Center. As such, it makes a great starting point for your journey. Here you can get a grasp of the scope and scale of the Smithsonian, see collections highlights from each of our museums, tour the castle's 19th century architecture, see what's going on today at all the museums, and consult with our in-house experts about what to see and do. Highlights: volunteers and interactive tools to help with visit planning, building America's national collection, 175 years of collecting, an exhibition displaying items from across the Smithsonian, descent tours highlighting the history and architecture of the castle, Castle Cafe, museum store, free visitor Wi-Fi. At the National Mall's iconic red building, learn about Smithsonian museums and the man behind them. Brit benefactor and an American castle. For a man who never set foot in Washington, D.C., French-born, British-raised James Smithson has had a huge impact on the city. The British scientist, 1765 to 1829, an illegitimate son of a duke, left his considerable fortune to a nephew with the stipulation that, were the nephew to die without heirs, the money go to the United States of America, to found at Washington, under the name of the Smithsonian Institution, an establishment for the increase and diffusion of knowledge. The nephew died, and a museum complex was born. Why did Smithson leave such a large bequest to a place he'd never been? It's a mystery, but theories abound. Perhaps he felt delegitimized by his homeland. Maybe he felt the US might further science better than Europe. The result of that gift, the Smithsonian Institution, was officially created by an Act of Congress in 1846. Its first building, the distinctive red Maryland sandstone Smithsonian Castle, was completed in 1855. The towered, neo-Gothic structure, designed by up-and-coming New York City architect James Renwick, initially held the entire institution, a gallery, a natural history collection, a laboratory, and even the first secretary of the organization's apartment. What's inside the Smithsonian Castle? While the Victorian arches and dark woodwork of the castle suggest a bygone era, it now holds a thoroughly modern visitors center with interactive 3D maps pinpointing and detailing the 17 DC area Smithsonian Institution properties, including museums, galleries, and the National Zoological Park. Since most are on the adjacent National Mall, the maps can be particularly helpful for plotting a day of museum hopping. Descents also man a help desk and distribute printed guides. There's also a coffee and snack shop, and a large seating area with free Wi-Fi, an ideal place to take a break and plan your next move, be it book viewing at the National Museum of Natural History or a dip into contemporary art the Hirshhorn Museum and Sculpture Garden. Also housed in the grand, church-like structure is the exhibit A Castle of Curiosities, delving into the history of the castle and the little that is known of Smithson's life. In the high-ceilinged rooms beyond, another exhibit, Welcome to the Smithsonian, holds art and artifacts representing all of the institution's members in old-timey gleaming wooden display cases. Look out for the National Zoo's Panda Cam showing its popular bears and ancient Buddhas from the Sackler Gallery. Perhaps most touching, the castle also holds James Smithson's crypt. Though he died in Genoa, Italy and was buried there, in 1905, he was reinterred in a marble crypt in a small, chapel-like room here. Pay tribute to him here, or by visiting the many museums his vision launched. The Smithsonian Institution Building was designed by prominent New York architect James Renwick, Jr. and erected between 1847 and 1855 on the Mall. It was built to house the Smithsonian Institution, which had been chartered by Act of Congress in 1846. The Smithsonian was established following the generous bequest of approximately $500,000 by James Smithson, an English scientist and the illegitimate son of the Duke of Northumberland. By the terms of the will, Smithson's estate was to pass to his nephew following Smithson's death in 1829. If the nephew should die without direct heirs, the will ordered, the estate was then to become the property of the United States government. The United States acquired the funds when the contested bequest was settled in the British courts in London in 1838 after the death of Smithson's nephew, but disagreements over Smithson's intentions for the money, which he had merely stated was to be used for the increase and diffusion of knowledge, with no indication as to how this was to be achieved, delayed the chartering of the institution until 1846. As the first building created for the new institution, this structure, now known as the Castle, was designed to house many types of activities, including a large storage room on the first floor designed for the exchange of scientific publications with other institutions and museums, a suite of rooms for the family of the institution's secretary, various natural history research rooms and laboratories, a reading room, a library, and a large lecture room. Two small rooms saw use as a museum of scientific instruments and an art gallery. Both of these rooms were occasionally used as minor lecture rooms for meetings by scientific organizations. The first story of the building consisted of an enormous room to be used as a museum, although it remained empty in 1855 due to lack of exhibit cases. Joseph Henry, the first secretary of the Smithsonian, referred to this room in 1855 as in appearance one of the most imposing rooms in this country. The floor of the middle part of this great hall was laid in cut stone, the remaining floor being of wood. An 1865 fire destroyed much of the young institution's collection and caused extensive damage to the upper floor of the building. Renovations were completed by Adolf Kloss. With the expansion of the Smithsonian Institution, the original building has come to be used primarily for administrative and visitor services. DC Inventory, the 8th of November 1964, Joint Committee on Landmarks. National Register, the 15th of October 1966. National Historic Landmark, the 12th of January 1965.
In 2 miles, take the exit on the left toward I-395 Express Lanes North. In half a mile, take the exit on the left toward I-395 Express Lanes North. Take the exit on the left toward I-395 Express Lanes North. Continue on I-395 express lanes north for 1 mile. Welcome to District of Columbia. In a quarter mile, take exit 1 on the left for US 1 North 14th Street toward National Mall. Take exit 1 on the left. Continue for 3/4 of a mile. In a quarter mile, turn right onto Independence Avenue Southwest. Take the next right onto Independence Avenue Southwest. In 300 feet, turn right onto Jefferson Drive Southwest. Take the next right onto Jefferson Drive Southwest. In a quarter mile, your destination will be on the right. Your destination is on the right.
think it started with a credit card too. I don't think it's a good credit card.
The castle is free to visit. It is open daily from 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. The castle's free descent-led tours of the building take place at 9 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. James Rennick, Jr. designed the castle as part of a design competition in 1846. The castle, formerly the Smithsonian Institution Building, was built in 1855 as the institution's administrative building and visitor center in Washington, D.C. Just 10 years after it was built, the castle caught fire and lost many important artifacts, the correspondence of James Smithson, the namesake of the Smithsonian, 200 oil paintings of Native Americans by painter John McStanley, and more succumbed to the fire. The building was then further fireproofed and expanded over the years. The Gothic Revival and Romanesque building strikes a commanding pose on the south side of the National Mall. It has 9 towers in all, though only 4 have occupiable space, others are simple decoration or house stairs. Touring the Smithsonian Castle. You don't have to visit the castle before going to the Smithsonian museums, but it's a great starting point if you need any help planning your visit to DC. As it is technically the visitor center for all the Smithsonian museums. You can see what is going on at the museums for that day and get help from an in-house expert on what to see and do on your visit. In their America's Treasure Chest display, you can find items from each of the Smithsonian museums on display, so you can get a taste for what's on at each of the museums. And a crypt inside the north entrance holds the tomb of James Smithson. You can also learn more about the castle and DC through interactive exhibits and maps on display throughout the museum. There is a free descent-led tour of the castle where you can learn more about its architecture and history. This tour is offered twice a day and is a great way to see the castle and to learn even more about it.
Wow, look at this. Daddy, can I take a picture?
History of the Smithsonian Castle: Bold Ambition and a Tragic Fire. The first Smithsonian building, the castle, was designed by architect James Renwick, Jr. One of America's most successful architects, a door-looking man, trained by his strict father. He was also responsible for St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City and the Smithsonian's Renwick Gallery, also in Washington, D.C. The building committee held a nationwide design competition in 1846 and selected Renwick's design by a unanimous vote. A cardboard model of Renwick's winning design is still on display in the castle. Renwick was assisted by Robert Mills, especially in the inside arrangement of the building, although the two frequently argued. Initially, the castle was intended to be built in white marble and then in yellow sandstone. The architect and the building committee finally agreed on using Seneca red sandstone from the Seneca Quarry, located in Montgomery County, Maryland. The red stone was hewn by slaves at the Seneca Quarry, the anger of their unjust labor pouring into every block of stone used in the castle. The silica was much less expensive than using granite or marble. It was also initially easy to work with and was found to harden to a satisfactory degree upon exposure to the elements. Even if slaves were not involved in the actual construction of the Smithsonian Castle, the building started from a foundation of pane. The building committee went on to choose Gilbert Cameron as the general contractor, and construction began in 1847. The east wing was completed by 1849 and was occupied by the first secretary of the Smithsonian, noted academic and pioneer in the research of electromagnetism, Professor Joseph Henry, and his family. This sullen dreamer was an avid fan of science and progress, leading experiments, including one that led to the formation of the National Weather Service. James Smithson's haunting legacy in a country he never saw alive. Being the focus of so much of nation's history and the subject of so many human passions, there are several historical figures that are said to haunt the Smithsonian Castle. The first and most notable presence is the namesake of the castle and founder of the institute, James Smithson. Smithson was an aristocratic Englishman who was both a chemist and mineralogist. Born in secret in Paris to avoid a family scandal. He was illegitimate and was denied the use of his family's surname for many years. He never truly found his home and traveled constantly to find somewhere he belonged. When James Smithson passed away, he left his entire fortune to the founding of the Smithsonian Institute. The incredible irony is that Smithson had never visited the United States of America and would never see the building that would bear his name. After his death, his remains were brought to the United States in 1904 and entombed in one of the main rooms. His ghost is the one that appears most often in the castle. In fact, his ghost was spotted so often that in 1973 the chief curator had Smithson's body disinterred and the casket examined. The skeleton of James Smithson was intact. Where is the Smithsonian Castle? The Smithsonian is located due south of Ford's Theatre, near the National Mall, behind the National Museum of African Art and the Sapla Gallery. It houses over 155 million artifacts across the domains of science, art and history, and the museum and the National Zoo are visited by over 29 million people a year.
Wow, look at this.